This is the last talk. We have been talking about the complex problem of existence. We have talked about forming images in our relationship with each other, the images which thought has projected and which we worship. We have also talked about fear, pleasure, and the ending of sorrow. We have also gone into the question of what is love, without all the travail that's involved in that word. We have also talked about compassion with its intelligence. And we ought now, this morning, talk about what is religion. Most of the intellectuals throughout the world shy away from that word. They see what religions are in the present world, with their beliefs, with their dogmas, with their rituals, and the hierarchical setup of the established order, established religion. And they rather scoff at it and run away from that, anything to do with religion. And as they get older and get very near that threshold called death, they begin to revert to their old conditioning. They either become Catholics or pursue some guru, or trot off, if they have money, to India or to Japan. And religion throughout the world has lost totally its creditability. It no longer has any significance in daily life. They may go to the marvelous cathedrals, churches, and all the things that go on in it, but their heart isn't in it. The more you examine, the more you criticize, the more one is aware of the whole content of all the religious structure, one becomes very skeptical, very doubtful of the whole business. And so the intellectuals will have nothing to do with it. And those who are not either be treated as romantically, emotionally, or something you go to be entertained. But if one puts aside all the intellectual, the romantic, sentimental attitude towards religion, one can then begin to ask, not with any naivete, but with seriousness, in which is included doubt, one begins to ask, what is religion? Not the mere meaning of that word, the etymological meaning, but deeply, what is religion? Man, from the ancient of times, has always thought that there must be something beyond the ordinary daily life, the ordinary misery, confusion, conflict of daily life. And in his search, he has invented all kinds of philosophies, all kinds of created all kinds of images, from the ancient Egyptians and the ancient Hindus to modern times. But he always gets caught, apparently, in some kind of illusion. He begins to delude himself. And out of that illusion, he begins to create all kinds of activities. And again, if we could brush all that aside, because we have examined it sufficiently, gone into it fairly deeply with all the contemporary religions, then one begins to ask oneself, what is, and if there is, something beyond all the contagion of thought, all corruption of time. If there is something beyond the usual existence in space and time, and if we begin to ask that of ourselves, how shall we set about it? Is any kind of preparation necessary? Discipline, sacrifice, control, all that. Certain period of preparation, and then advance. And we are asking ourselves, we are thinking together, if there is anything beyond, and if one does not hypnotize oneself, if when one is free from illusion, then one can begin to examine, inquire very profoundly, what is truth, and if there is any path to it, or there is no path, or how can the mind reach that or come to it? So we are going together this morning, together, inquire, explore into this problem. First of all, it's important to understand, is it not, that one should be free of all illusions. Otherwise the mind remains in various forms and varieties of illusions. So what creates illusions? Is it not desire? Wanting to reach something, wanting to experience something, wanting to have, desiring something out of the ordinary, extrasensory perception, visions, spiritual experiences, and so on. So, one must be very clear the nature of desire, which we talked considerably in the past talks, and understand the movement of desire, which is thought with its image, which we went into, and also to have no motive in our inquiry. That's very difficult. To have no intention, to have not a sense of direction. Then the brain is free to really inquire. Again, which we have been into this problem right through our talks. We said there must be order in our house, in our existence, in our relationship, in our activity. Without that order, which is freedom, there can be no virtue. Virtue, righteousness, is not something that is intellectually cultivated. Where there is order, there is virtue. And the order is something that's living, not a routine, a habit. And other point is there something to be learned? We are thinking together, please. Is there something to be learned from another? You can learn from another history, biology, mathematics, physics, the whole technological world with all its complex knowledge. You can learn from another, from a book, from one who has already studied all that. And is there something to be learned from another psychologically? This is an important question that we must investigate together, to be learned from another psychologically about ourselves, about that which is eternal, if there is something eternal. Or there is nothing to learn from another, because all the human experience, all the psychological knowledge that one has, that humanity has gathered together for millions of years, is within oneself. You follow? Therefore, if that is so, that is, we are, the rest of mankind, our consciousness is the whole of mankind, and our consciousness is that. And it seems rather absurd and rather naive to go out and learn from somebody else about ourselves, because it requires the clarity of observation to learn about ourselves. That's simple. There is no psychological authority, and therefore there is no spiritual authority, because the whole history of mankind, which is the story of humanity, is in us. Right. Therefore there is nothing to experience. I wonder if you see this. There is nothing to be learned from somebody who says, I know. Or I will show you the path to truth. This has been the whole trend of the priests throughout the world. They are the interpreters between the highest and the common. From the ancient of days they have played this game. And to learn about, to understand ourselves, all that authority must be set aside. Right? Obviously. Because that authority is part of us. We are the priests, we are the disciples, we are the teachers, we are the experience, we are the ultimate, if we know how to understand. Right? So, there is nothing to be learned from somebody, including that of the speaker. Especially of the speaker, because one is greatly accepts other people's influence, impressions, right? So one has to be free to inquire. And to inquire very, very deeply, not superficially, because we have done all the superficial inquiry during the last 6 or 60 years, and we have come to the point when we say we have more or less established order in our life, more or less, right? And as we go along, we'll establish greater order. Then we can ask, what is the religious mind which can understand what is meditation, which we are going to into. Within the last perhaps 10, 15 years, that word has become very popular in the West. Before, only very few who had been to Asia or India talked and inquired their form of meditation. Because the Asiatics and the Hindus have said, we'll call the Hindus and the Asiatics one word, Asiatics. Asiatics have said, only through meditation can you come to understand that which is timeless, which has no measure. But during the last 10 or 15 years, those who have nothing to do, call themselves gurus, came over to the east, to the west, and brought that word. It became a word that rather made them like a drug. The word meditation actually means, dictionary means, to think over, ponder over, be concerned with, and so on. And these people who brought that word from the East said they sold it to those gullible people. You paid for it, paid for the mantras which they brought, and you gradually learned their tricks. And also you learned the various mantras which they brought along. You know the word, I'm sure, like guru, mantra, meditation is part of the daily common coin. The word mantra in Sanskrit, I believe, means consider, ponder over, meditate in not becoming. You understand? Not becoming. And also that word means put aside all self-centered activity. Mantra means that, which is ponder over, meditate in not becoming, and put away altogether the self-centered activity. Right? That's the real meaning of that word mantra. You cannot sell that. You cannot go to somebody and say, give me money and I'll tell you. And those people who have done it have become enormously rich people. It has become something commercial. And also, there have been various systems of meditation. The Tibetan, the Hindu, the Japanese, Zen, and so on and so on. Right? And these systems have been invented by thought, obviously. And thought being limited, the systems must inevitably be limited. And also, they become mechanical. If you repeat, your mind naturally goes dull, rather stupid, and utterly gullible. Right? It's common sense, all this. but we are also eager to, to experience something spiritual, either through drugs, through alcohol, or follow a system that you hope will give you some kind of exciting experience. Because we are bored with our own daily life, going to the office for the next 40 years, at the end of it, die. We are bored with all that. We are bored with our present religions. And so somebody comes along and brings some fantastic notions, and we fall for it. This is happening. We are not exaggerating. We are not attacking anybody personally, but we are just examining the nonsense that's going on. So if one is sufficiently aware of all this and has put aside all this, because they're utterly meaningless. You don't have to go to India or to Tibet or to God knows somewhere else, or even to Rome. Because one can, if one uses not only common sense, but have a critical mind, a mind that's questioning, not only what others say, but also questioning yourself, which is far more important. Not to accept anything that you yourself see that is correct or noble or real experience, to question it. To have a mind that is capable, rational, sane, that is essential. And to have a mind that's free from all the illusion, a form of self-hypnosis, if that is possible, in a world that's more or less gone mad, violent, terror, wars, the atomic bomb, and the computer that is going to take over all the activities of thought. Then what is a human being? The human being has lived on thought. All the architecture, all the music, the things that are inside the churches, temples and mosques, they're all put there by thought, invented by thought. All our relationship is based on thought. Though we say, I love you, it is still part of the image which thought has created about another. So thought to us is astonishingly important. And thought itself, as we have examined it very carefully, is limited. It has the capacity to break up, to bring about fragmentation between people, as my religion, my country, my God, my belief, and so on, so on. All that is the movement of thought. Thought, space, and time, which we talked about. Now, together, if we have gone that far, then we can begin to examine what is actually meditation. The Christian form of that is contemplation. Contemplation is different from meditation. Meditation is the capacity of the brain which is no longer functioning partially, which you talked about also, but brain that has freed itself from its conditioning and therefore functioning as a whole. Such a brain is different from mere contemplation. I can be conditioned as a Christian, Hindu, whatever you will, and I can contemplate from my background, from my conditioning. That contemplation does not free my conditioning. But meditation demands, and therefore it becomes extraordinarily serious and requires a great deal of inquiry and attention. It requires a great deal of attention. Not to function partially, which we again explain carefully. Partially we mean in a particular specialization or to function in a particular occupation, to narrowly make the brain or allow the brain to accept beliefs, tradition, dogmas, rituals, which are only partial, all those invented by thought. The Christians have this word faith. And if one has faith in God or whatever you will, things will be all right. Or things will come out all right. This has been the slogan for 2,000 years. And the Asiatics have their own form of faith. Karma, reincarnation, evolution, time, and so on. So meditation is different from contemplation in the sense that meditation demands that the brain is no longer conditioned to act partially but wholly. Right? That is the requirement for meditation. Otherwise, meditation has no meaning. So how the question then is it possible, living in this world which demands certain forms of specialization, a skillful carpenter, skillful mechanic, skillful mathematician, or a very skillful housewife, doesn't matter. Living in this world which demands these, and yet be free from specialization. You know, I wonder if we are together in this. Suppose I am a physicist, that is, theoretical physicist, and I have spent my life, most of my life, in formulating mathematically, thinking about it, questioning it, asking, cultivated tremendous knowledge about it, and my brain has become specialized, narrowed down. And yet I begin to inquire into meditation, right? And in my inquiry into meditation, I can only partially understand the significance and the depth of that word, because I am anchored in something else, right? I wonder if we are meeting each other, right? I am anchored in my theoretical physicist as my profession. Anchored there, I begin to inquire theoretically whether there is timeless, whether there is what is meditation, and so on. So my inquiry becomes partial again, right? But I have to live in this world. I'm a professor at some university. I've got a wife, children, I have the responsibility of all that. And perhaps I'm also ill. I've got responsibility of all that. And yet I want to inquire very profoundly into the nature of truth, which is part of meditation. So my approach is partial. So my question is it possible to be specialized as a carpenter and yet leave it at a certain level so that my brain, the brain which is a common brain to all humanity, and this is very difficult for people to accept. Your brain is not your brain. It has been growing for millions of years, accumulating all kinds of and so on, knowledge. It is not yours. Your consciousness event is not your consciousness, which you readily accept, but you would rather resist when you say your brain is not yours. It is grown through space and time, which is common to all humanity. This we won't go into now. So my question is, being specialized, can my brain say yes? It has its function, but that function is not going to interfere, right? I wonder if you understand all this. I'm a carpenter, but I know the quality of wood, the tools, the grain, the beauty of the wood, and so on. I say yes, that's not natural. I must have that. But the brain that has cultivated this speciality cannot possibly understand the wholeness of meditation, right? If I as a carpenter understand this, the truth of it, that I as a carpenter have a place, but that cannot, that specialization has no place in the wholeness of comprehension, right? In the wholeness of understanding meditation. If I see the truth of that, then specialization becomes small affair, right? Are we meeting? So, then we begin to ask, what is meditation? Why certain parts of the world, like the Asiatic world, have given importance to this word? Asia is not geographically separate from the rest of the world. It's geographically separate. But Asia is you and me. Right? Because we are part of humanity. Part of our consciousness. We are the rest of humanity. So when one part of humanity has given a great deal of time, from 2,000 or 3,000, 4,000 years, as the Egyptians have done, as the Hindus have done, it's part of our inquiry to find out. First of all, meditation demands attention, right? To attain, which is to give your whole capacity, energy, in observation. Attention is different from concentration. I hope you are following all this. Are we together in this? Concentration is an effort made by thought to focus its capacity as energy on a particular point. Right? Right? That is concentration. When you are in a school, the teacher says concentrate on your book. Don't look out of the window, look at your beastly book. And concentrate, you are trained to concentrate. That is to bring all your energy to a particular point. Which means in that concentration, you are not allowing any kind of other thoughts to interfere. Right? That is to control. Concentration implies controlling thought, not to wander away. Right? I hope you're following. But to focus your thought on a particular subject, on a particular page, on a particular picture, which is thought says that it's important to focus my attention, focus my energy on that. Right? It is the operation of thought. I wonder if you're right. Are we me? It's the operation of thought in which there is compulsion, control, which says, look. So, in concentration, please understand this carefully if you don't mind. In concentration, there is the controller and the controlled. Right? My thought is wandering off. I say it should not wander off. I bring it back, the controller who says I must concentrate on this. So there is a controller and the controlled. Right? Who is the controller? The controller is part of thought. The controller is the past. Right? The controller who says, I have learned a great deal, and it's important for me, the controller, to control thought. That is, thought has divided itself as the controller and the controlled. So that it's a trick that thought is playing upon itself. I wonder if you see all this. Right? Please, we must understand this very carefully, because in attention there is no controller, nor the controlled. There is only attention. So it requires a careful examination into the nature of concentration with its controller and the control. Right? All our life there is this controller. I must do this, I must not do that. I must control my desires, control my anger, control my impetus, control. Therefore I gradually learn to inhibit myself. And there are those people who say, don't inhibit, do whatever you like. Right? That's the game also being played by the gurus. So, one must be very clear in understanding what is concentration and what is attention. As we are pointing out, in attention, that is to attend, there is no control. Please understand this, because as we're going to find out presently, is there a way of living our daily life in which there is no control? Right? As part of meditation. I wonder if is a question one must ask oneself. Is there in daily existence a way of living in which every form of control doesn't exist at all? Because control means effort. Control means division between the controller and the controlled. I'm angry, I must control my anger. I smoke, I must not smoke, and I must resist smoking. Right? And so on, so on, so on. What we are saying is something totally different, and therefore it may be misunderstood and may be rejected altogether, which is very common. Because we say, well, all life is control. If you don't control, you will become permissive, nonsensical, it has no meaning. Therefore you must control. Right? Religions, philosophy, your teachers, your family, mother, control. But we have never inquired into who is the controller. The controller is put together in the past. The past is the knowledge, which is thought. Thought has separated itself as the controller and the controlled. And concentration is all that. And in understanding that, we are asking much more fundamental question, which is, can one live in this world with a family, all the rest of it, without a shadow of control? Right? First of all, see the beauty of that question. Because our brain is trained for 1,000 years to inhibit, to control. It's never operating with the wholeness of the brain. Right? See what it is doing for yourself. You're not learning from me, from the speaker. You are watching your own brain in operation. Rationally, critical examination, in which there is no deception, hypnosis, and so on. And most of the meditations that have been put forward from the Asiatic world is to control thought, so that you have a mind that is at peace. You have a mind that is quiet, not eternally chattering. Because silence, quietness, absolute stillness of the mind, brain is necessary in order to perceive. Right? Therefore, all the types of meditation, however subtle, have the basis to control. Or hand yourself over to some guru, to some idea. Right? And forget yourself. Because you have given yourself over to something, and therefore you are at peace, which is again the movement of thought, desire, and the excitement of something you have offered and been accepted. You follow all this? So whereas attention is something entirely different. It is not the opposite of concentration, right? If it is the opposite, then the opposite has its root in its own opposite, right? If love is the opposite of hate, then love is born out of hate, right? I wonder if you see this. Any opposite has its root in its own opposite. So we are saying that attention is not the opposite of concentration. It has totally divorced from it. So we are going to inquire together what is attention. Does it need effort? Right? That is one of our principal activities. I must make an effort. I am lazy, I don't want to get up this morning, but I must get up. Make an effort. Right? I don't want to do something, but I must. I'm getting tired of this. See how extraordinary that we cannot catch the significance of it immediately. It has to be explained. We seem to be incapable of direct perception between concentration camps, concentration and attention. Right? To have an insight into attention and be attentive. Well, we'll go into it. When does attention take place? Obviously not through effort. Right? When you make an effort to be attentive, it is an indication that you are inattentive and trying to make that inattention become attention. You understand? I'm tired of this explanation. Personally, I've never learned about any of all this nonsense. Personally, nobody explained all this to me. Thank God. Personally, I've never read about all this. It wouldn't be authentic, it has no meaning. But to have quick insight, you understand? To see instantly the falseness of all religious organizations, all of them. And therefore, you are out of it. To see instantly that the observer is the observed. And therefore, no effort is, it's so. It's only effort exists when there's division. You follow? So, does it indicate our brains have become so dull? Because we have been trained, you follow? So that it has lost its pristine quickness. Its capacity to see directly and then without all the explanations and words. But unfortunately, one has to go into this because our minds, our brains cannot grasp instantly, for example, that truth has no path. You understand? To see the immensity of that statement, the beauty of that statement, and put aside all paths. The Asiatic, the Western, the North, South, East, West. So that your brain becomes extraordinarily active. One of the difficulties is that we are becoming mechanical. The computer is learning more quickly than we are learning. The computer can go so far ahead of us. And so, if our brains are not extraordinarily alive and active, our brains will gradually wither away. Because now we exist because we have to think, we have to be active, partially. But when that computer can take all the work, all the thought, most of the thought, and operate at a rapidity which the brain cannot, then the brain is going to wither. You understand? Please realize all this. This is happening. It's not an exaggerated statement of the speaker. It is happening now. We are unaware of it. So, we are inquiring into what is attention. In concentration, there is always a center from which you are acting. Right? You can see it. Right? It's clear. When I concentrate, I am concentrating for some benefit, for some deep-rooted motive, for something to gain and so on, which is from a center I am observing. Whereas in attention, there is no center at all. When you look at something immense like the mountains, their extraordinary majesty, the beauty of the valley, the line against the blue sky, the beauty of it, for a moment drives out the center. Haven't you noticed this? And you are, for a second, stunned by the greatness of it. Beauty is that perception when the center is not. You understand? You understand? Like a child given a toy, he's so absorbed by the toy, he's no longer being mischievous, he's completely with the toy. But he breaks the toy and he's back to himself. Right? So most of us are absorbed by various toys. And when the toys go, we are back to ourselves. Now, in the understanding of ourselves without the toy, right? That understanding without any direction, without any motive, that very understanding is the freedom from specialization which makes the whole of the brain active. Now, the whole of the brain, when it's active, is total attention. Right? Look, I point out something else. We're always looking or feeling with one of the senses, right? I like the taste of something. Or hear some music but one never listens one never looks at anything with all your senses. Right? Have you ever done it? For God's sake. When you look at a mountain, because of its majesty, your senses are fully in operation. Therefore you forget yourself. You understand? Now when you look at the movement of the sea or the water or the sky, and the slip of a moon, when you look at it totally, with all your senses, that is complete attention, in which there is no center. Which means that attention is total silence of the brain that is no longer chattering, completely still. Is it taking place with you now? Is your brain completely still? Because we are talking about a stillness, absolute silence of the mind, of the brain. Because there are various forms of silence. The silence between two noises, the silence between two notes, the silence between thought, right? The silence when you go into a forest where there is great danger of a dangerous animal. Everything becomes totally silent. I don't know if you have, no, you haven't. Here you have killed everything. So, this silence is not put together by thought or through fear. You know, when you are really frightened, your whole body, your nerves, your brain becomes... Haven't you noticed it? Oh Lord. So this is not that quality of silence, it's entirely different. It is the operation of the whole of the brain, with all its senses active. It is that freedom which brings about total silence of the mind. And it is only such a mind, such a brain, mind, brain. I don't want to divide it into two for the moment, we'll stick to the brain. Such a brain that is absolutely quiet, not brought about by effort, determination, by desire, by motive. It is the freedom of order, which is virtue, righteousness in behavior. And this is, in that silence alone, there is that which is nameless and timeless. That is meditation.